examining what's on your plate and deciding what to keep and what to toss. No, we are not talking about food. This is Dr. Mary, and that is this week's viewer question. So I've been posting on the blog a lot about spring and how we're in the change of seasons. It's the wheel of the year. As I record this, it's the first day of spring in the northern hemisphere, first day of fall in the southern hemisphere. And this is a wonderful time to reflect on all of your priorities, roles, obligations, and really make that decision. What do I want to keep moving forward? What do I want to discard? And what do I'm not quite so sure about. So I want to tell you about a creative activity I learned from a good friend of mine a few years ago who was going through shaman training. What her shaman teacher had her do was get a big backpack and fill it full of rocks. Now, I'm not saying you have to do this part. Bear with me. And he made her walk around with that backpack for hours. Now, here's the interesting part. So at the end of the day of walking around with his bag full of rocks, the instructions were, take out every rock. All of these rocks represent your roles, your obligations, the things that you do for yourself and for other people. Now, by this time, her back felt like it was breaking because she'd been carrying around this big old bag of rocks on her back for an entire day. And that was the point of the exercise. And again, you can skip that part. But here's the fun part. I found it to be a really illustrative idea for me. I did actually get a big backpack and I wrote down all of my roles and responsibilities, and I went into my backyard and I got some rocks and I just wrote everything down, didn't really evaluate it, just wrote it down, put them all in a backpack, put it on my shoulder to see how heavy it was, to kind of simulate her experience. And it was really, really heavy. And so I didn't wear it all day. I took it down, I took it off, I put all the rocks back out, and I said, okay, if this backpack full of rocks represents all of the weight of the world that I'm carrying on my shoulders from all of my roles and responsibilities and obligations and blah, 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 all the things that I do, and I know how physically heavy it feels now, it's going to make it a little easier for me to decide, do I want to keep this rock? It's a really big rock, so it better be really, really important to me. Or do I want to discard this rock? So I laid all my rocks out, and this is what she would have been instructed to do in her shaman training as well after she carried her rocks around all day. I didn't do that part. I just put them on to test the weight, and I was like, whoa, I don't want to do that part. So I got all the rocks, and I put them all out like on the floor in front of me. I did it sitting outside. You can do it inside, doesn't matter. And I really gave it some thought. So if you think of all the roles and responsibilities and obligations you have in your life, I want you to think about a couple of things. Number one, how big is this rock? Is this a big role, a big responsibility, carries a lot of weight? So maybe you're a mother and you have young children at home, and this is a big, heavy rock. Okay. Maybe you are a grandmother, but you don't see your grandkids that often, maybe once a month. You really enjoy it, so maybe that rock isn't so big, right? So just kind of decide. And if you don't have a bunch of rocks, just metaphorically speaking, how big of a rock is this role? Question 2, how heavy does it feel? Does it feel like a burden? Or does it feel, even if it may be a big rock, it's not that heavy? So this is a really heavy rock. It's a lava rock. They're about the same size, but because it's a lava rock, it has a lot of holes in it, so it's not nearly as heavy as this rock. So this would be a good metaphor for two similar size roles. One feels like a burden, it's a big old heavy rock. The other one doesn't feel like a burden. So it doesn't feel like such a weight of the world on your shoulders if you're carrying it around all the time. So let's say, just for sake of argument, you have a job that you just do not like. It's soul sucking. It doesn't make your soul sing. That might be this rock. If, on the other hand, you have a job that you love, the same job's really part of your identity, a lot of your time is spent at this job, really heavy because you don't like it, or really light because you do like it. So just metaphorically speaking, right? How big is this rock? How heavy is this rock? Does it lift you up because it's really light and airy and it fills you up inside? So maybe a big rock, but it's a lightweight big rock. Or does it weigh you down and you just feel like, oh, I'm constantly being drained or dragged by it? So how big is the rock? How heavy is it? Question 3, what do you want it to look like? Maybe you want this rock to be this rock. Maybe you want to be in a job that doesn't feel like it's soul-sucking and weighing you down, but you want to feel like you're being uplifted by your role. Maybe you want to minimize, you want to decrease the size of the rock. Maybe right now it feels like it's a really big burden and you want it to be smaller. So you see where I'm going with this, right? Now you get to decide, once you have all of your rocks laid out and you've decided how big is this role, responsibility, obligation, etc. How heavy is it? How much of a burden is it? What do I want it to look like? You got to decide if there needs to be a shift, how to get it from this to this, or this to no more. Maybe it's such a burden, it's so draining that you've just decided, I'm done. So fun exercise. I'm a visual person, so I loved doing that exercise because it was a really fun way for me to grasp not only how many rocks I was carrying and the weight of those relative rocks, but what I wanted to get rid of and what I wanted to lighten my load so I could carve out more time for me and spend more time doing the things that I loved doing that lifted me up instead of weighing me down. So I hope that analogy serves you. It's something that I do about once a year. I kind of make a list of all my roles and obligations and things that I do. And I don't always go out in the backyard and get 100 rocks. But I did it once, and occasionally, I'll use that metaphor of really trying to decide, is this a big rock? Like, is it important to me? Is it part of my identity? I'll really spend a lot of time doing it. Is it a burden, or does it lift me up? And what do I want it to look like? And then, of course, how do I get from where I am now to where I want it to be? So we'll talk about that piece more in a future video. But I hope that helps answer your question, a really fun, easy way to evaluate all of your roles and responsibilities and decide, how big is it? How heavy? How much of a burden is it? And what do I want it to look like? And then just start brainstorming. How might I get it there? How might I take it off my plate entirely if it's something you don't want to be part of your life anymore? How might I lessen the burden? How might I make it more fun for me? How might I get this heavy rock to feel a little lighter or smaller? All right, much love. I hope that analogy serves you. Again, it doesn't have to be the change of season. If you're watching this video in May, it doesn't matter. This is a great exercise to do at any point in time during the year, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed or weighed down, literally feeling like you're carrying the weight of your world on your shoulders. This is a great activity for you to think about your roles and obligations. Even if you don't have rocks, think about them as big heavy rock that weighs you down, big lightweight rock that lifts you up, or kind of a medium-sized rock. But it's really pretty and you like it, so it's good. So much love. I will see you next week. Bye for now.